Okay, guys. Looks like we've settled on a color of stain for the sliding barn door, and it's going to be white. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove all of these black screws, and I'll probably paint them white. But I need to remove them anyway because I want to run the router around the edge. I guess I didn't think of that before I put the screws in. And this is glued and screwed, so removing the screws isn't going to make the door fall apart. It's just fine without the screws. So let me remove those, and then I can run the router around the edges. All right, I pulled all the black screws out of the barn door, and I've got all these painted white, so I'm going to use these since we've decided to go with white stain on the door so it matches the other doors down the hallway. So was it a waste of time painting all those other screws black? Nope, because now I got myself a little stash here of black-headed screws, and I will use these in another project. So let me grab these, get these installed, and then we'll go from there. So some of you guys might be thinking, that the black screws would have looked just fine against the white stain, and it probably would have, but I just wanted to use these white screws on the white stain. If for no other reason, it'll hide any mistakes. One thing about these screws, when you paint them, makes them stick to the screwdriver. All right, I've got all of my screws replaced. The black ones are out, the white ones are in. But one thing that I wanted to point out, it's pretty typical to have your stiles run on the outside of your rails. But if you notice, because this door is made with tongue and groove, that I only have 2 screws here, and then 2 in the center, and then 2 on the top, holding this outside piece of tongue and groove on. It might have been better to have this extended all the way out and have my rails end to end and my stiles in the center. I didn't do it that way, but I am going to add some additional strength. So what I'm going to do is I'll take a piece of angle aluminum, paint it white, and then I'm going to attach it to the back of this. This one's not long enough, but I'll attach it like that, and that will add all the strength that I need to keep this together. So that's what I'm going to do. At this point, I just need to clean all the dust off from rounding over the edges and doing a little bit of sanding, and I'll get that all cleaned up, and then we'll be able to start staining. Okay, this should give you a better idea of what this angle aluminum is going to be. This is the back side of the door, and I'll have it go all the way across, so it should be able to hold these 2 outside boards just fine. And I'll have one of these on the bottom and one on the top, and that should be all it needs. I don't want anything like a 1x, because that'll stick out too far. Then it'll have problems sliding left and right. It'll be bumping into trim and things like that. So the angle aluminum is really the right solution for this. So I'm going to go ahead and put a coat of stain on, and once the stain is done, then I'll come back and I'll lay down the angle aluminum. In the meantime, I'll get some and cut it to length and then paint it white. Because the barn door is made out of pine, you want to condition the pine first before you add the stain. So what we're doing is we're adding this paint thinner, which is 100% mineral spirits. So we'll put that down first, and then we can follow that up with the stain. Okay, here we are finishing up the stain. My wife Tammy actually did most of the work here. I actually was just helping her. She applied all of the mineral spirits and did this whole side of stain. So this is where we're at here. We'll see how long it takes for this to dry. All right, it's day 3. I'm hoping this is dry. I checked it last night. It was still wet. Look at that. It's still coming off. It's day 3, and this is still not dry. I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm going to do, but that's where we are right now. All right, here it is, evening, and the door's still tacky in places. But I'm going to go ahead and at least get my bracing in. So I've got this 1/16 thick piece of angled aluminum, and I've got it marked where I want to cut it. And aluminum is soft enough that you can actually cut it on a rip saw. Okay, you want to make sure that you've got eyewear, ear wear, and lung wear. You don't want metal shards getting anywhere, and you don't want that noise getting in your ears either. So I'm going to get all this stuff on. I'm going to cut this angle to the right length. I don't know if you can see all those metal shards or not, but those things are flying all over the place, and you do not want those to get in your lungs or your eyes. And you can see here it makes a pretty good cut, but there are some shards, so you don't want to rub your finger across that because it's not just getting a splinter. I mean, that'll rip you open. So you're going to want to file those down and get that done before you start handling it. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to get this painted. Just going to paint it white. Okay, I got my 2 end supports cut. And you can see that they're 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, so it completely covers the bottom and the top. There is kind of a sharp point here on the edge, though, that I need to file down. I'll need to get that rounded off. So I'll do that on all 4 of the end pieces. So I'll have 2 here and then 2 up there. So let me go get those filed down, and then I'll be able to mark these out and get them drilled. Yeah, I like to mark the corners in black that I'm going to grind down. Just because if I don't, I will do one that's wrong. That'll happen every time. So this way it just keeps me honest. All right, that's not a bad edge. I'm just going to go ahead and just use a sanding disc to clean it up. It does a pretty nice job because this is so soft. Yeah, it's nice. No burrs, nice and smooth. I'll go ahead and get the rest of these done, and we'll go from there. All right, I'll let these dry. It only takes about, 15 minutes in a normal day, but as cold as it's been out here in the garage, who knows how long it's going to take. Could take 30 minutes or an hour. But once those dry, I'll take a look at them, see if they need another coat. Otherwise, I'll bring them over to the door, and I'll space out where I need to drill the holes. So that's where we're at. All right, guys, it's been 5 days, and the stain is finally dry. Looks like it's still wet over there on the right side, but that's actually dry. I checked it out. So I'm going to go ahead and install these end braces here. So first thing I got to do is measure them out, mark them, and drill the holes for the screws, and then get those mounted. And as soon as I do that, I'm going to flip this over because the other side hasn't been stained yet. So I've been waiting for this top side to get dry. So let me get to that. It has warmed up quite a bit. It's supposed to hit 50 today. So I'm hoping that with the warmer weather that it might dry a little faster and I'd be able to get this thing mounted tomorrow night. But we'll see. So let's get to it. Okay, so when I was working on this end brace here, you can see that I've got kind of a sharp corner there, and that I made this corner nice and rounded. And the reason why I did that is, see if you can see that. I'm kind of poked up, and I was afraid that that might, you know, if you bumped into that with your foot, you might do a little bit of damage. So by rounding over that edge, it made it a lot softer. So it would make it pretty tough to get caught up on that corner edge. So this is actually going to go like this. And that'll be the part that is softened up, and you can see the top doesn't really matter because it's not going to be poking out anywhere. Okay, I'm going to put a little indentation with a punch to help my drill bit from wandering on the aluminum when I'm drilling. Okay, I ended up putting 2 screws on each of the end boards, and then I just threw one in the center of each of the other boards. And that should really add all the support that the door needs. So I'll go do the top one, and then I'll flip this thing over and we'll start giving it some more stain. All right, got the bottom support and the top support installed, flipped, and got first coat of stain. So I think that's going to look pretty good. Who knows, maybe we'll go with just one coat of stain and just kind of leave it in a whitewashed state where you can see the grain through it. Or maybe we'll come back and install another coat. I don't know. So I've got this parabolic heater facing the door, so I'm hoping that that'll help it to dry out a little bit better as well. I don't know, it doesn't really put much heat out much further than a couple of feet, but we'll see. It should help with the ambient temperature a little bit. Okay, this is where the sliding barn door is going to go. We've been using this rod and curtain for years, and it's done fine, but it's time to upgrade. So I need to see how much room that I need to take, if I'm going to need to move that collage there, what we're going to need to do. So I've got my hardware here. I'm going to open it up and check it out. Okay, I've got my backer board all cut and got a couple coats of paint. Ran the router around one side to soften the edges. That'll be what the side that's not against the wall. So let that dry, and then I'll get it installed. But I got to go figure out where the studs are in the wall, so I know where to attach this. Okay, my backer board is dry, so I've got my rail laying on here, and I've got it centered both horizontally and vertically, and I've got it clamped so it'll stay in place. And I'm doing this so that I can go ahead and pre-drill the holes where this is going to attach to the backer board. It'll be a lot easier to drill those holes out now than when it's mounted onto the wall. So I'm going to do that. Okay, first thing I did was find my studs on the wall, and I marked just below where the backer board's going to go with some tape. So that way I'll know exactly where to drill and screw the backer board into the wall. Okay, I did the same thing I always do. I put the first screw in, and then I get my board level, and then I put the second screw in, and I'll come back and touch these up. But you can see that where I need to attach the sliding rail, there are no studs the entire length. So that's why you want to use one of these backer boards, because more than likely that's going to be the case. All right, I've got the door just kind of leaning up against the door opening, and I've got it setting up about a ½ an inch off the ground, and I did that so that it would have plenty of room to slide freely. And then I've got my my slider up on the wall, and then I just marked where the holes are, and I did the same thing on the other side. And for those of you guys with a good eye, you can see that it's not quite level. So just so you know, I made sure that it was level before I marked the other side so that they're both even. So now I need to take the door down and drill out the holes, and then I'll be able to attach the slider hardware, and then we'll be able to place her up there and see if it works. All right, all the hardware is installed and the door's hung, and you can see I've got a nice ½ inch gap at the bottom. And let's see how it slides. There, perfect. Stays in place on that end. And stays in place on that end. So one of the things that I did was this sliding bar came in 2 pieces. So right in the center, I raised it about a 1/16 of an inch. So it would have just a slight hill in the center that would keep it from sliding when it's in place here and when it's in place over there. So, you know, it's not something that they recommend doing. They don't recommend against it. That's just an idea that I came up with, and it seemed to work. So there we have it. Right now we just have the one coat of the white stain. I'm not sure if we're going to stick with this or not. We'll either put another coat of white or maybe 2 coats to get it more white and get rid of some of the wood grain, or we may just end up staining this dark. So I guess we'll have to see. All right, talk to you guys later.